Speaker, September 30th marks the day put aside to remember the tragedy of the residential school system, the unjust colonial practices in Canada's past, and the trauma and lost opportunities of generations of Indigenous peoples. It's crucial to understand that reconciliation is a path, a process that requires our sustained commitments and dedication. It begins with acknowledging the truth and the pain inflicted upon Indigenous peoples, and it continues with meaningful actions that address the ongoing disparities and inequities Indigenous peoples have faced for far too long. To truly honor the spirit of reconciliation, we must address this by creating equitable opportunities for Indigenous peoples in areas such as employment, education, entrepreneurship, and resource sharing. It means dismantling the barriers that have hindered economic progress for Indigenous communities and empowering them to shape their economic futures. Let us commit to Indigenous self-determination and prosperity and a more and just equitable future. Remember the past, honor the survivors, and commit ourselves to a future where reconciliation is not just a dream, but a reality for all.
To kill the Indian in the child. That was the goal of Canada's horrific residential schools. A brutal policy made in this place that stole thousands of children like my Cookum Christina and subjected them to cruel torture and neglect that resulted in the serious trauma and death. Intergenerational trauma haunts families of residential school survivors today. And it is up to all of us to stand with them, to acknowledge our inheritance, and to ensure we end this ongoing genocide. Survivors have come forward and done the impossible. They have told their stories, reopened wounds, and shared with us solutions manifested in the 94 TRC calls to action. To date, we've only accomplished 13 of those calls to action. At this rate, it will take us till 2065 to accomplish all of them. Let us not repeat the mistakes of the past. Let us act diligently. Let us fulfill our country's promise of truth, of reparations, and then, and only then, Madam Speaker, will we have reconciliation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. September 30th is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. This day of reflection and remembrance is an opportunity to walk together with Indigenous peoples towards healing and reconciliation in Canada. We must begin by acknowledging the painful history that has brought us to where we are today. For centuries, Indigenous peoples endured colonialization, the residential school system, the loss of their land, their language, and their culture. It's a history we must continue to confront head-on. Unlike the combative and aggressive words used by the leader of the Conservatives when he said, and I quote, "Canada's Aboriginals need to learn the value of hard work more than they need compensation for the abuse suffered in residential schools." That is the cold, harsh views that have set back progress of Indigenous peoples for generations. We must never forget that the atrocities of residential schools and the generational trauma that still lingers in this country. Let us stand united in our commitment to truth, to reconciliation, and to a better Canada for all people, Mr. Speaker.
Madam Speaker, tomorrow, September 30th, is Truth and Reconciliation Day, a First Nations initiative to commemorate the painful history of residential schools and to remember all those who suffered the trauma that followed them all their lives, as well as all those children who never came home and their families. On this occasion, we're all invited to show our solidarity by wearing orange, which for Indigenous peoples symbolizes truth and healing. There's still work to be done to find out the truth about residential schools, but this is the first step. We need to know in order to understand the grave consequences of this programmed cultural dispossession which span generations. But time alone won't heal the wounds. We need concrete gestures of reconciliation towards First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. But only they can identify what those gestures should be. It's up to us to show the respect that has too often been lacking throughout our history. It's essential if we're to write the next chapter of history together.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to reflect on the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. I cannot overstate the harms that the Indian residential school caused. In comparison, during World War II, 1 in 26 soldiers who went over to fight did not come home. In the Indian residential schools, 1 in 25 children did not come home. Those who came home struggled, many who lost language, culture, and family values. Madam Speaker, tomorrow I ask Canadians, if you meet a survivor, show kindness and compassion, because you don't know what they've been through. I think about so many members of my community and my family who went to the Shubenacadie Indian residential schools, and we have so much to work to do in this country, and we have so much to learn about our shared history. Tomorrow and every day after, let us walk the journey of reconciliation together. Thank you.
I'm going to allow the honourable member for Hall-Elmer to redo his statement because there was, between the official opposition and the government, there was conversations going right across from where he was speaking a while ago. So I will afford the honourable member for Hall-Elmer to redo his statement.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. September 30th is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. Tomorrow, we will gather on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe to mark the profound significance of this day as we come together to remember, reflect, and act together. But let's be clear, Madam Speaker, this isn't a one-day conversation. It's a call to become lifelong learners, constantly striving to understand the wounds of the past and their ongoing implications. This day invites us to dive deeper into the complex relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. It's an opportunity to learn, empathize, and grow together. Today, tomorrow, and every day, let's take a moment to reflect on the resilience of Indigenous communities. Let's commit to standing with them as we work together for a better future. Change begins with each one of us. Together, we can honor the strength and spirit of Indigenous communities. Working for a Canada where reconciliation is not just a word, it's a reality. Thank you, miigwech.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On National Day of Truth and Reconciliation, we commemorate the thousands of children who were stolen at the hands of residential institutions. It's a painful reminder of the horrors that occurred and of what was lost. It's also a day of cherishing what is being regained. I recently had the privilege of visiting Getgiman Wolastoqey Language Immersion School. Children attending this land-based and experiential learning center are little busy bees. They are connecting to their culture, relearning their language, and maintaining a healthy relationship with Mother Earth through nature. It's truly beautiful and heartwarming to witness. It's healing in action. Language is key to one's identity, and these children will grow up being loud and proud of every aspect of who they are, a feeling that their ancestors were violently robbed of. I want to say a special shout out to the founder and staff at Getgiman, and I want to celebrate the children who recently received their traditional names, notably Benson, Wapspe, Polar Bear, the son of Rachel, who is one of my team members. I also wish to tell my own two Wolastoqey boys that I am so grateful to be their mom and to witness them grow up. You are my motivation and the reason why I am here, to fight and create a better world for you. Gizelmo and Waliwin.